In search and rescue teams, there is one rule that is never spoken of to civilians. If, deep in the forest, you find a person who has been missing for more than a week, never approach them from behind. First, call them by name, and if they don't turn around immediately, run. Run as fast as you can. My name is Mark. For 3 years, I worked as a volunteer in the forests of Oregon, searching for lost tourists. During this time, I saw a lot of shit. People driven mad by dehydration, bodies torn apart by bears. But what happened last Thursday made me burn my uniform. It all started with the disappearance of the Everhart family. A father and his 10-year-old son went hiking in the Blackwood Wild Zone and never returned. On the 5th day of the search, our headquarters shut down. There were no chances of survival left. But I was a fool. I decided to search the old sector number 4 alone. By 7 in the evening, the fog descended on the trees like a heavy, dirty blanket. The air became damp and smelled of rot. You know, that sickly sweet smell of decay that you can never mistake for anything else. As I pushed deeper into the thicket, my flashlight beam caught something blue on the ground. I stepped closer. It was the father's backpack, caught on a thorny bush. It was torn open, but not by a bear. The heavy nylon straps were sliced clean, as if by giant shears. Inside, his flashlight was still on, its battery dying, casting a weak, flickering light onto a pool of dark, sticky liquid on the grass. And then I heard it. "Dad, look. What a bird." The voice was childish, high-pitched. It came from the thick blueberry bushes just 20 yards away. My heart hammered furiously. Was the boy actually alive after 5 days in this freezing wet forest? I pushed through the branches and ran into a small clearing. In the center of it, with his back to me, stood a child. He was wearing that exact blue jacket that was specified in the search description. "Kid," I called out softly. "Can you hear me?" He didn't move. I took a step forward, and then a strange, unnatural crunch paralyzed me. You know how a dry branch sounds when you step on it with all your weight? That crunch came from inside his body. Crunch, crunch. Slowly, incredibly slowly, his head began to turn toward me. But his shoulders remained absolutely motionless. His head turned 180 degrees, directly into my face. He had no eyes. In place of his eyeballs were 2 deep, black liquid oozing holes. His lower jaw was unnaturally stretched, hanging almost to his chest, held only by thin fibers of torn skin. But the most terrifying thing, his mouth didn't move. Yet from this black maw, that same clean, cheerful child's voice came out again. "Dad, look. What a bird." It was not a child. It was a puppet. Something was sitting inside this body, using it as bait. From behind the tree behind the boy, it slowly emerged. It was huge, about 3 meters tall, skinny, covered in gray, parchment-like skin. Its arms were unnaturally long, with fingers ending in bony growths. One of these hands was holding the dead body of the boy's father, like a puppeteer holding a broken doll. The creature made a sound. It wasn't a roar. It was the sound of a fast-forwarding cassette tape, turning into a terrifying, static, distorted whistle. I bolted back. I have never run like that in my life. But the forest was pitch black, and within 50 yards, my foot caught on a wet root. I went down hard, sliding through the mud and losing my flashlight. The darkness swallowed me instantly. As I scrambled to get up, I heard it. The rapid, heavy thudding of something massive sprinting toward my position. I didn't have time to run. I dragged myself under the massive roots of a fallen spruce tree and curled into a tight ball, pressing my hands over my mouth to quiet my breathing. The heavy footsteps stopped right outside my hiding spot. Through a narrow gap in the wet roots, I saw it. The skinny, 3-meter-tall gray legs. It was standing completely still, its head tilted, listening to the dark. Then, the dead father's head, hanging from the creature's hand, slowly opened its mouth. "Mark, are you lost too?" The voice didn't belong to the father. It was the exact voice of my search team leader, Miller. The creature stood there for what felt like an eternity, mimicking different voices from our rescue radio channel. Finally, it turned and began to crawl away, its limbs snapping like dry kindling. I waited until the sound completely faded before dragging myself out of the mud and running blindly toward the highway. I burst out to the road where my car was parked. I put the key into the ignition with shaking hands, slammed on the gas, and tore away. The wheels spun in the mud, throwing gravel. In the rearview mirror, I managed to notice how the gray figure with the empty eye sockets of the boy stood at the edge of the forest and waved its hand at me. I drove without stopping. The clock on the dashboard read midnight, then 1, then 2. About halfway home, the car radio, which was completely turned off, suddenly hissed to life. It was just white noise at first, but then a voice cut through the static. "Mark, wait, Mark." It was my own mother's voice, sweet and calm, coming from the car speakers. I slammed my hand onto the power button, but the static only got louder, turning into that terrifying high-speed cassette whistle. In a panic, I reached under the steering wheel and ripped the wires out to make it stop. I didn't go to the police. What would I tell them? I would have been locked up in a mental ward. I arrived at my suburban home in Portland only at 2 in the morning. I went up the porch, walked into the house, locked the door on all deadbolts, and slid down the wall to the floor, exhausted. It's over, I thought. I'm home. I'm safe. But the house was too quiet. I walked into the bathroom, turned on the tap, and splashed freezing water on my face. When I looked up into the mirror, my heart stopped for a second. My eyes were bloodshot, my face covered in dried mud and scratches. I looked like a ghost. I wiped the mirror, walked out, and went to the kitchen to pour myself some water. My hands were still shaking so badly the glass clattered against my teeth. And then I froze. On the kitchen table lay my cell phone, the exact one I had lost in the forest during my panicked flight. On the screen, one new notification was glowing. A video message from my wife, sent 10 minutes ago. With trembling fingers, I pressed the screen. On the video was our bedroom on the 2nd floor. My wife was fast asleep. The camera was slowly approaching her face. Whoever was holding the phone was breathing heavily and hoarsely. Suddenly, the camera turned to the mirror on the wardrobe. In the reflection, I saw myself, or to be exact, a creature that looked exactly like me. My face, my clothes, but its neck was twisted at an unnatural angle, and from its mouth, which didn't move, a whisper came, my own whisper. "Mark, I'm already home. And where are you?" The screen went black. At that exact moment, on the 2nd floor of my house, directly above my head, a heavy, slow crunch of breaking bones echoed. Crunch, crunch. And slow footsteps in my own boots began to descend the stairs to the kitchen.